Hello folk, how you doing? Scotty. So the SNP are now going to set down permanent laws based off of what we saw with the lockdowns, etc. It does mean it gives them the permanent power to set down lockdowns at any given time that they want, to set down the mask mandates, etc. As well, of course, restrict people of their freedom of movement, other things like restrictions of gatherings, etc. So these permanent laws are coming in. Now, regardless of what you think of the virus or whatnot, governments love a crisis, and they love a crisis because it gives them an excuse to take more power and control. And I stated this before, and this is exactly what you're seeing now. The mixed economy is problematic because you're faced with dependency upon the state, whether it's healthcare, education, roads, fire service, etc, etc. You know, all of these things, when you depend upon the state grows legs and runs with it. And this is exactly what you've seen, even to a varying extent, sadly, with that of the UK government over so many years. And this is the problem, because when it comes to the Scottish nationalists, they are willfully ignorant. They're staring straight past the authoritarianism. You know, I even had one, and I mentioned this before, where this person was trying to argue with me that the Named Persons Act, that there was nothing at all wrong with it, as if to say I just misinterpreted it. Basically, the Named Persons Act was something that would give the state the power to be a legal guardian over your children right up to the age of 18, something where the state would become the legal guardian. And that's something that Americans would scoff at. When you look at New York, just recently there's news something about these restrictions on restaurants where you need passports, etc. It happens everywhere you find, you know, these socialist states, etc., because these cultists are voting the SNP regardless of what they say and do. We saw that with the hate crime bill. And the hate crime bill would essentially mean you could say something wrong and you could find yourself behind bars for up to 7 years or whatever. Now, I'm not going to say that we would go down the road of totalitarianism, because I don't think that's going to reach that stage. I think there's enough people that would prevent us from ever getting to that stage. However, the very fact that you saw the hate crime bill being passed and people didn't even bat an eyelid, sadly they continued on voting SNP, is remarkable. According to the opinion polls of the likes of Nicola Sturgeon, it has plummeted. And the support for Scottish independence has plummeted, apparently. These permanent laws being put into place, and these, you know, cultists will try to justify that. And that's the problem, because I long argued and I stated to people, I warned people, I says the reason why I don't support Scottish independence is because there are enough of these people who justify all of this. They're basically quasi-socialists, or they're full-blown socialists, and I don't have faith in it at all. And you look throughout the Scottish independence marches, etc., and you could see the banners, placards, etc., the anti-Tory rhetoric. As imperfect as the Tories are, the reason why people in this country hated the Tories, or hate the Tories, is because they look at that as a symbol of Margaret Thatcher. They think it is capitalism, basically utterly despised Thatcher and privatisation and deregulation. I don't need to go into all of that. But of course, a lot of these people believe the myth that deregulation caused the banking crisis. Of course, they believe all this rhetoric. A number of them do believe this idea of the Scandinavian economies, where they think they can have their higher tax rates, you know, as if they're utopias, etc. But they don't understand the Scandinavian economies. They don't understand they've got low levels of government regulation, etc., etc. Because a lot of these people are very much socialist minded to some varying extent or another. They are continuously voting the SNP, and the SNP is growing too big for its own boots. Well, what's that going to mean for the future? For private businesses and investors, etc., would they really want to stick around in a country like this? I really don't think so, because I don't think they have much trust, because it just seems to be becoming more and more draconian by the year. It was bad enough when they completely ignored our democratic vote when it came to the EU referendum. They tried to overturn that, of course, typical of SNP, because there is no in between, and I warned people about socialism. I stated there is no such thing as a libertarian socialist, a democratic socialist. It doesn't exist. And the whole thing over social democracy is the fact that it's this attempt of the combination between the public and private sector. Eventually, with that of, you know, socialism, as always, it's like a tug of war. It tries to drag you in the opposite direction. It tries to pull you more and more in the direction of more dependency upon the state, becomes more and more authoritarian, and you end up seeing all of this. This is exactly what happens. And people complained, and I remember with the whole Scottish independence referendum, where a number of these people would say that the reason why we support Scottish independence is because of a self-serving government in Westminster. Well, I'm sorry, you're never going to get a government that serves you for as long as you have dependency upon the state, like the socialists, etc. They've got no interest of letting go of such power. And all that power has gone to the heads of the likes of Nicola Sturgeon. They see themselves as that role, as being that of the nanny status, and it's exactly why nationalisation is so damaging. I cannot believe that this country once produced the likes of Adam Smith, and it's embarrassing to even see the Adam Smith statue, and by the way, it's caked all over. They don't even keep it clean, but they've got no respect whatsoever over anything to do with capitalism. Basically a bunch of quasi-socialists, or another type of socialist. Basically the fascist variant. I seen this coming a mile off.
So the comment basically, Long John or whatever his name is, comes out and basically says France's problems today are caused by the greedy capitalist bankers. I'm talking about the mid-80s. Mister, I have done so well out of capitalism. This is exactly what the problem is, and this is why Scotland cannot become an independent nation. Under collectivism, it's the opposite way around. It's basically where the state is the main element of the economy, where the state looks after you, where you're dependent upon the government because you can't look after yourself, so the government looks after you, so the government has the power to tax you. And what happens is because you've given the government that power to tax you, the government then has the power to, monopolise, exploit you. It can do whatever it likes to you. And this is exactly what's happening. You're actually seeing this now. It's actually exploiting you and monopolising. It's favouring the big corporations because of this. It basically has the power to tax you, take your money away from you, and fund the losses of the big corporations. It's almost like this image where they keep you enslaved, where they keep the democratic system there. You vote and you think you're making a difference. The fact of the matter is, what have you been getting every 4 years? You've been getting the same thing every 4 years. And the reason why you've been getting the same thing every 4 years is because the fact that in reality, the ones with the power and control over your economic life is the government. But they're never going to tell you that. They're never going to educate you that. They're going to keep you enslaved by mind and keep you thinking that your vote actually counts, that you actually matter. And that's the problem that we have with the Scottish nationalists today. The only way that Scotland is going to survive outside of this union is if Scotland reduces the size of its government, deregulates the economy, privatises more of its capital and industry, and of course limits government intervention from the economy. What are the chances of that happening in Scotland becoming an independent country? Simple wee biscuits for food. And the kid was suspended. It started. America, the United States of America, has been facing this for a good few years now, and they'll understand what I'm talking about. It's now started here in Great Britain. You're now starting to see what exactly the totalitarianism that you saw there in the United States, and you're starting to see that grow here.
And it's all because people will not listen, because people just shut their mind off. They think I'm crazy. It's not until things become to the extreme that people start to listen then. Why does it have to reach such a level in order for people to start listening to you? Forget the whole thing on the issue to do with Scottish independence. It's not about whether Scotland remains in the Union or whether Scotland separates. The real argument here is about capitalism versus socialism. It's a slow and gradual path where you're seeing the end of your freedom of speech, etc. Enough is enough, folk. Because regardless of what government you've got, is rolling back the powers and the size of government. Because if you do not, you're going to go down the road of more and more authoritarianism, and you'll have to end up eventually fighting your way out of it all. I know that it's been a while, I had taken a break, at least for an extent, but I felt I had to get this out. There was a video of mine, I think it was part 3 of my series on the Black Lives Matter. You can actually find it on Odyssey, and you'll find the video there. It's part 3. It has been restricted. They've only restricted it to children or whatnot. When you watch the video, I don't know whether it's been because of something to do with it being offensive or whatnot. That's another one of my videos restricted, and for what? Why would they restrict that particular video? So anyway, folk, hope you've enjoyed the video. I shall talk to you later. Cheers.